Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones, and today's guest is Jennifer Schwartz. Jennifer fell in love with strength training at the age of 16, but faced multiple knee injuries as a competitive athlete, and this sparked a lifelong passion for blending fitness, recovery, and neuromuscular therapy. For the past decade, she has helped hundreds of athletes move without pain on the field, in the studio. Jennifer holds a master's in health management, is a published author, and served as the director of injury prevention and fitness for Alexandria Soccer Association. She's now the founder of Impact Your Fitness in Alexandria, Virginia, and the host of Think Fit, Be Fit podcast. Her specialties include late-stage injury rehab, arthritis management, chronic injury recovery, and strength programming. She also is one of only 90 practitioners worldwide certified in MAT-RX, a cutting-edge neuromuscular therapy technique. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dana. I'm so glad to be here.
So I did a lot of talking, but maybe you want to get a little more specific. Like, who are you? We see everything you accomplish, but tell us who you are.
Yes. I'm Jennifer, and I am in Alexandria, Virginia, but I try to reach people worldwide with this message of the neuromuscular strength, and rehabbing neuromuscular strength can really unlock the bigger recovery questions that we have when we go through something chronic or a sports injury that seems simple but lingers. I truly want to help people understand how important the nervous system is in their injury care, injury prevention, in their optimized performance care. So, like I said, we do that hands-on in our studio with muscle activation techniques. We use direct current electrical stimulation, use very specific isometric training to achieve that as well, in addition to nervous system resets and lymphatic drainage treatments. So that all lives in under one roof at Impact Your Fitness Studio. I lead the team because it's my business and my team. And then I spend a lot of time hands-on with athletes and clients using muscle activation techniques, which I've been doing since 2012.
And I love it because I know for me, and I was a chronic pain sufferer, and there was so many triggers emotionally, mentally, wherever, for me returning to fitness in a, shall we say, normal way. And the idea of movement seemed dangerous. And so what you do is almost like really supportive for somebody who's coming back from a chronic injury or maybe even a chronic pain sufferer because of the fact that you're almost reteaching people how to use their body the way that it's designed.
I think that's one of the first benefits that our clients experience is more confidence right away within 2 weeks of working with us. And that happens so regularly that if we don't see that, we do refer to a pain science coach and physical therapist in our area, because the mental and emotional side of that and returning to whatever movement you desire is so, like, it is so linked to the coupling of these events, like going down the stairs and having pain, or your ankle twisting on a certain part of the pitch, right? Like the coupling of those is a real phenomena where, they can create like a catastrophic event mentally and more pain physically. And
Right.
so, yes, that's correct. We do support people in that way. And it's I think something that separates us from the I guess, other practitioners working with injuries. Having that whole picture of pain science is really.
So I'm familiar with ART, right?
Mhm,
Active release therapy, which is more of a hands-on,
mhm,
it's almost like a freeing of muscles that are stuck.
mhm.
But muscle activation is completely different. Can you, if I'm
Yeah.
coming in like, and I said, I heard about this thing, this muscle activation technique, can you give it to me in a couple of sentences? Like, what would you tell
Sure.
me?
So we identify and correct muscular imbalances from the strength side, and that doesn't look like just coaching a hip bridge with extra glute activation. It looks like manual muscle testing of each individual fiber
Hmm.
and using a systematic approach of activation with the stimulation, or we can do it by hand on with like a palpation is what it's called. And the muscle brain nerve connection becomes more efficient. So we're trying to target specifically something called the muscle spindle. But at the end of the day, we're really trying to investigate that, like, where is the muscle not doing its job? What plane of motion is that in? And that is different from looking at somebody's squat, gravity based, and saying, I bet you their low back and adductors are tight. We take that to a very granular and look at each individual piece of the motion on the table. And that gives us a more direct picture of which muscle is not doing its job at the right time at the right time. So ART is more of a releasing technique. Muscle activation techniques is more investigative and rectifying the muscle that, didn't show up to the game, basically.
Do you
And could
have,
be. Mhm.
is there one muscle that you see that shows up more? I mean, obviously, you mentioned glute activation,
Yeah.
and I know that's a huge issue for a lot of athletes because of the fact that we just sit on it, and a lot of times
Mhm.
it's not used because there are bigger muscles that just take over. But is there a particular area that you're noticing that, I mean, maybe has changed over the years since you've done this?
Well, we do have a hierarchical approach to muscle activation, meaning there are muscles that need to stabilize before other stuff can start happening in an efficient way. We can compensate and get from A to B and Z very efficiently with all kinds of imbalances, and that's really good for various reasons. But when we're trying to reverse engineer and build back up, it is, it's more about using this hierarchical approach and stabilizing some of the deep muscles in the core and the hips first.
Okay.
With that said, if there's a muscle group that I come back to constantly, it's what you just mentioned, which is glute maximus, psoas, diaphragm muscles, obliques, psoas minor, and transverse abdominis. So I got a whole list, but it comes down to how the body is maintaining, like, homeostasis and gravity and posture, and us being able to reset that along with this investigative approach. So it's pretty deep work, actually, and not deep in like the digging and using an elbow or something. It's deep in the nervous system
Yeah, depth
kind of
versus
way.
breadth, right?
Yeah.
Is that you really well, and the thing is, or at least my understanding is that if you're doing that kind of work,
Mhm,
especially as an athlete, one, it gives you a new appreciation for how your body moves. But as you practice and start to reconnect the synapses, then you're really just changing your neuroplasticity, right,
mm,
as well. And so again, there's that confidence piece where now I know I can cut to my left and everything's working the way it's supposed to instead of me just depending on, my outer foot to kind of catch me and sling me back as opposed
mm,
to activating all the muscles, including my core.
mhm.
How often are you dealing with feet? Because I know, like for
I love.
me, that's a big one because I noticed that because especially with the shoes, right?
Yeah.
Is that we have all these funky shoes and I'm seeing a lot of weak lower leg muscles
Yes.
that are creating Achilles issues, plantar
Yeah.
fasciitis, shin splints,
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Mm. Yes. So my background is in soccer. I have to say this, I love feet. And this is a topic
God
that I could
bless you.
talk about at like, yeah. Well, I love it because there isn't anyone that specializes in muscles, like the muscle activation techniques practitioner. And the feet have like 42 joints. And the only solution seems to be like putting more bracing around it with an orthotic, which is absolutely ridiculous in my head. That is like it's like putting an oven mitt on and saying, "Go play baseball." Like, you don't have access to all these joints and all this tissue, like, that's what you're doing essentially with more orthotic or more bracing. You're changing the way the neurological pathways work and are sensitized in the foot, which you need for good athletic movement. I mean, this is a little bit of one of those things I'm like, this is a hill I will die on. This is very important to me. So I do really enjoy working with feet and helping people get over their strength imbalances. And sometimes like the hip and the low back client is a foot problem. And that's one of the things that our clients understand coming into the process, that we really do look at the whole picture, the whole, like just because 3 physical therapists told you your left glute isn't active doesn't mean that's exactly where we're going. We are going to investigate both hip flexors, the hamstrings, the hip rotators, and the feet and the calves. And so it's layered in that way. And I love when I get to the feet with clients because it's so rewarding.
Well, and I had a long time ago, I had an issue where I don't know, I had some pain in my cuboid
Mhm.
and the doctor was, super feet. That's going to
Yeah.
cure it. And it absolutely destroyed me wearing them. And then I read Peter Goskew's book and where he talked about the evolution of our feet and the fact of that they haven't evolved because we're putting these blocks of rubber on our feet and really weakening our feet. And
Yeah.
I am not a barefoot person, but I started walking around barefoot. And interestingly enough, the pain went away and
Yeah.
it's never been an issue since because of the
Mm.
fact that I do work on my feet.
Great anecdote. Love it.
Well, and I just was watching a recent interview with Peter Attia. He was interviewing somebody for his podcast, and they were talking about the fact that feet or foot strength, right, is another longevity piece. And it's something that
Yeah.
people don't think about, but
Yeah.
how you prevent falls is she whittled it down to toe strength.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. I can also it also makes like the whole thing of like balancing on an unstable surface with shoes on absolutely ridiculous. Like it's the category of things I call an overcorrection. But yeah, anyways, I would definitely second that. And I definitely see a lack of sensation in people's feet that are older, and that concerns me for sure. The nerves for sure are problematic too. It's not just the strength, it's like the conduction of electricity is a problem.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunately nutrition plays a part
Yep.
and other organs working the way they're supposed to
Yeah.
be working, right?
Or just simple hydration,
Right.
right? Yeah.
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 That's right.
Overlooked. Very overlooked. Yeah.
Conductor is water, so you should
Mhm.
probably use it, right? Or not water essentially, but electrolytes,
No, totally. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. With the MAC technique, and
Mhm.
then you couple it with strength training.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a program that uses biomechanics testing equipment to identify the fatigue rate of big muscles. We look at, you know, basic performance measurements like hinging patterns, squatting patterns, pulling, pushing. And then we build a strength training program for that client. And then they use our strength training equipment to basically build a sustainable strength around their joints. We are proponents of using all modes of exercise in an ecosystem for that healthy mindset around exercise. This is a little different with a competitive athlete, but if we're talking about chronic pain reduction and overcoming chronic pain, we want our clients to understand that strength training is very important. but it's not the only thing that's important. Um, what's also important is having a sense of community with whether it's walking with a friend or something a little bit more involved, like a conditioning class or something. But we also are a proponent of, the cardiovascular exercise being important. I know people kind of get upset about like, you have to do cardio, but guess what? You do. You need to increase your CO2 tolerance. Like it's just what we need.
Yeah. You got to do all the things.
Yeah. And mobility. So we try to build people an ecosystem of exercise, and that's a different framework than just do it or just follow the instructions of the guru or the instructor in class. It is more about like what brings me excitement, what is going to match my tolerance and allow me to push it so I can overexceed my tolerance and change my window of tolerance, and what is reachable, right? Like distance, money, really like having a coaching session to think about those things. And like, how many times a week can you do this, Dana? How many? And so that's like a very like, it's more of a coaching, way of going into it and allowing people to meet you and not just giving them instructions, right? Well, we will design a nice strength training program for you, but it is self-directed. And I think that is one of the most important things about sustainable fitness. It has to be self-directed. And I know personal trainers might not want to hear that, but after, it, and I know that's people's livelihood is being a personal trainer, but at the end of the day, your success is only measured by how many people are still exercising, right?
Right.
And enjoying it. And if you're a part of their plan and their ecosystem, that's wonderful. If not, if they feel forced to see you, if they feel intimidated by you, and it's not that fun, you're not doing good service, in my opinion, and it might be considered even malpractice. So I think as a strength and conditioning coach and someone who teaches other specialists how to use electrical stimulation and things like that, and leading my own team, I think that's one of the most important things I want to convey to them is like self-directed fitness, and how you get someone there is really important. And so that was like a bigger answer. Like I think sometimes like Peter Attia's podcast, they're like looking at all these granular, like big toe extension, this and that. I'm saying, let's start more basic. Appeal to their emotions in this way, because we started with emotions. You came in here pretty upset and in a catastrophic mindset about your injury. Now we have to switch that and make it, self led and give you the power to your help you invest in your future self.
And I love that. That's too cool because that's how I coach for myself as a fitness trainer.
Mhm.
Well, because I've done, if I sometimes I'll feel that too, because they'll have people that they're almost like kids, right? Where they're like, just give me the stuff and I'll do it. And then, or not.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Mhm.
And it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel like the relationship I want. Like, I want to know
Mhm.
what you want to do. And the cool thing is that I have clients that want to go swim. I have clients that want to go run, so they're all doing all different things, but they're doing what works for them and they'll continue to do it because it's enjoyable. Where if it's a class where I'm making you throw up in a can or whatever, like, to me, that's not enjoyable. Like I don't like torturing people for my entertainment. It's really because I do want people to continue to move well into their 80s. And you can only do that if you like what you're doing.
Yeah.
On the other end of it, how would you tell? Because what you're talking about is so basic and scary because nobody, like I found when I went through my journey of recovering that outside of physical therapy, there really was no concern
Mhm.
about me, and it wasn't like even today I was talking to my son and I said something like, oh, I've been anxious or whatever. And then he looked at me and he's like, well, what's been going on? And like, so he's even getting trained and understanding that there is an emotional component to how we feel.
True.
but doctors aren't quite getting it. And there's still like some are, and I'm not bagging on the whole profession, but there is this kind of cattle mentality of like, oh yes, you have an injury. Let's do, physical therapy for 6 weeks. And then I'm going to smack you on the forehead. You're healed and you're going to be able to
Mhm.
walk normally or whatever it may be. But you are addressing the whole human,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that has to link to your success as well, right? Because now people are going to say, "Oh, we need to go there because of the fact that like I had this horrific injury, I felt like crap and now I'm, back to normal or better than I was before the injury." And
Mhm.
so so I guess what I'm doing is just applauding you for the fact that you and your team are mindful about addressing the whole person, because we need
Yeah.
more people like you out there that help us feel
I'm
safe.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the independence and the freedom, just to do it, right? Just to have the vision, right? Like it's like so exciting to, be in that space every day and get that feedback from people. It's really just a delight, a pleasure. It ripples into so many pieces of my life and it even holds me emotionally as well. Like
That's
it's
great.
very important. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, there are certain people that are getting to a certain age where joint pain and mobility issues are starting to kind of creep
Mm,
up. Is there one thing or one recommendation you can make,
mhm.
maybe for somebody who's not coming to your program, but just out there and they're trying to get themselves together? Like, what can help them feel better and move with more confidence?
Okay. Well, there's two things. One, we already touched on it. Hydration is so important for your recovery and your muscles. So start there. Um, it has to do with much more than just water. There's a lot more to hydration than just water and some electrolytes. So I'll just say that. I don't have like a guide or anything on it. We teach people one on one, like what minerals are, what cleaning your water looks like, and it's so important for your recovery and your sleep, by the way,
Hmm.
and your nerves. So it hits the whole like system, right? So the second thing is definitely a little bit it's less of a popular suggestion. I'm a huge component of isometrics. I think isometrics will change the way you move and mobilize within minutes if you do them gently and just enough to wake up stabilizing muscle fibers. So what that might look like is you're sitting upright, holding your body in a good posture. That's an isometric as well for most people, right? And extending your knee and holding that in a position for like 5 to 8 seconds without using other joints to hold it. So some people will use their ankle, some people will rotate their hip. So nice clean movement where you're just like holding the joint position in tension. For those on video, here's a really simple example. Instead of trying to stretch your shoulder cap or your tricep by pulling this way, what you can do is use tension and push into it. Now I'm doing an isometric for the muscles on the contractile end of the joint, which in muscle activation techniques will give you more mobility. And that's the thing that we practice over and over again is we see once we get the contractile side more active, you get more lengthening on the
And
tricep.
that's a huge component.
Yeah. And it's literally the opposite of like stretching.
Hmm.
So when a yogi client, if they're if they are if they're passively pushing their joints too far into a stretch, you can get injured. And it happens all the time. There's all kinds of documents on academic research on hip injuries, and overstretching and yoga injuries. And So what I would have somebody do instead of like when they do a twist with their, their midsection or their core, instead of pushing themselves and pulling into that position, they actively rotate using those obliques and then actively tension that area with their breath and their intention. And then they can release more into that position. Some people call that propriose PNF stretching.
Mhm.
That's a version of that, right? Where you push and then go further into the motion. So I'm a big proponent of isometric exercise. And usually I give at most like 3 or 4 of those prescriptive for pre-exercise and then post-exercise. Well, really, and in the morning, I really like nerve flosses for that. Just some really nice gliding motion for the nerve. I'm a big fan of that. So I don't prescribe any stretching for people. I'm either prescribing isometric exercise, lymphatic drainage, or nerve flosses. And yeah. So that's my one of my main. I'd say that's a big takeaway if you're working with us.
That's
But
very
Jen
cool.
said I
I
don't have to
remember my
stretch.
mother, um, she tore her ACL, I think,
Yeah.
and the doctor didn't give her any exercises, and I gave her isometrics,
Yeah.
and she was able to
Interesting.
recover pretty well for being
Yeah.
older, and
That's
and
amazing.
when she went into doctor, he was like, "Oh, you look pretty good," and she's like, "No, thanks to you."
Yeah.
But she was older, so she's not gonna do a lot of the exercises, but I could convince her to do the isometrics,
Fabulous.
and
Yeah.
that
It's
was
the safest way.
yeah,
It's one of the safest way to increase like any type of muscle activity and blood flow. It's also something you can do to reduce pain on the spot. Like it really helps the brain get those chemicals going in the right in towards less pain for sure. Opens up that pain cabinet in the brain
that's
for
awesome.
sure.
So
Yeah.
hydration and isometrics, you hear that,
Yep.
everybody? That's what you gotta do to start off. This has been a great conversation. So how do we get in touch with you? Like, how do we
Yeah.
if somebody's interested in possibly hooking up with you and receiving some services, what does that look like?
Well, you can find us at impactyourfitness.net, on Instagram, Impact Your Fitness Studio. We have several people that work at the studio, and we're very good about communicating and texting and all that stuff. For me, I have an Instagram account that I post a lot of my journey. I don't necessarily post like coaching tips or anything, but I'm posting about my journey and like how I view my fitness, which most people find motivating and interesting, I guess. um, and that's Jennifer underscore Simone underscore Schwartz. I'm on there too much, so go ahead and say hi. And then we have a podcast network actually. So there's the Think Fit Be Fit podcast network on Apple, and then it's on Spotify as well. The one that's publishing right now is called the Impact Your Fitness podcast. So we'll link that one because that's a current season. And this season, we talked a lot about lymphatics, the nervous system, and bioelectricity. So, in that order, mostly we talked about lymphatics on this season. It surprisingly took up like 8 episodes. There's a lot.
It's not that simple,
A
huh?
lot of content. Yeah, I mean, we want to motivate people by giving them an exercise IQ. Why are we doing this? Is a really good question I want that people have for us. And so that's what really inspired me to podcast was to share my love for anatomy and the why, because the human body is an incredible gosh design of intelligence, and I think it holds a secret to life itself. It's just incredible how this thing moves and operates and conducts electricity. I think it's just incredible. So I really like to that's the kind of stuff I share on Instagram too, but mostly the podcast because the topics are, it's science intense, and I'm intense in that way too. I get really excited.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate
Oh
it.
my gosh. It was great conversation, and your listeners and clients are really lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.